Well, hey everybody, Wes McDonald here, and welcome to another episode of TigerTube. And if you can't see us, that means you're listening in on Tigerpaw Radio, so thank you very much. I am super thrilled with my guest today. I'm not sure if you've met Laura Blackmer. If you're in the Office Equipment channel, you must be sleeping under a rock. She is now the president of channel sales at Konica Minolta Business Solutions. How are you, Laura?
I'm great, Wes. Great to see you.
Yeah, really wonderful to see you. And so thankful and appreciative for you coming in after a long weekend to be able to do this interview today. And certainly, I always love my OEM interviews for the manufacturers, and I know that all of our guests do as well. I was fortunate to see you and some others on a panel at the BTA event in Chicago, and it's just really exciting to be able to to hear you and listen to you and see what's going on with the organization. So thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you, and you're welcome. It's great to be here, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you better over the last few months as part of your group. And yeah, I'm really interested to get a different audience. I think you have a broader audience than perhaps some of the other folks that I talk to. So I'm excited to reach them.
I appreciate that. And yes, for those maybe wondering, it's like, what kind of calls are they on? We have a group called the Top 100, and Laura graciously joins quite often. And it's great because we have obviously manufacturers, we have software providers, we have dealers. It's really kind of a neat group to get a lot of different perspectives. So I appreciate that.
Really is.
I'm going to ask you the first question. You've recently been promoted, and I've said it before, but congratulations. And for the world at large that maybe doesn't know about the promotion, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Actually, the promotion in some way was a bit of a check mark on a job that was evolving over the last couple of years, especially as we got into uncharted territory, as we entered the pandemic and how to manage through that. And then coming out of that, we had about 2 months of what I would call, kind of set the tone for the next year, and boom, we get hit with supply chain issues. So as those kind of things came in, you found your job changing dramatically. I certainly did, and I know others on both sides, right? Manufacturers, dealers, and consultants, and people who sort of help us all saw the same thing, which is we had to evolve. And so part of that evolution was making, first of all, learning a heck of a lot more about how the products actually get to us. And, I really didn't pay that much attention to it before, because if I needed something, odds are it was sitting in a warehouse. Yeah. So really understanding and learning how, not just the supply chain, but the whole, back end of how we procure pieces and parts and what our production facilities look like, So I think as you learn what I would call the broader business elements of this business, your job just naturally sort of expands to fill that void, right? So in some ways, it was, like I said, a bit of a check mark on a job that I had already started to evolve into. But I think for Konica Minolta, our business changed pretty dramatically in the last couple of years. And so did our executive leadership team changed. And so I think Sam basically said, hey, you know what, you're going to get all this stuff. So it's everything, back to making decisions about, what does come over and how we're going to apply it and use it in our channel, and what do the finances look for that, and how do I help dealers get invested into our business, and how do I help dealers make decisions about their business. So I think there was just a lot of natural changes, and then it just got kind of signed off on with a new title, which was really fun. I think, I had a couple of dealers call me and say, wait a minute, weren't you already president? Because I think I was sort of acting in the role, maybe without all the appropriate, business cards, but it's all good. And it's been great working for Sam, because, he's got a lot of big things to do. And so if I can take some of what might have been more on his plate and pull it onto my plate, all the better. And it just helps decisions get made faster. And so it's been good. It's been a really good learning opportunity for me as well.
Yeah, I love that you say that you've kind of evolved, the position itself has kind of naturally evolved. And that's one thing I try and tell people. A lot of people think the Office Equipment channel is a sleepy place, right? That nothing changes. I know, I have the same reaction, right? And when we talk about the evolutions and the movements and things that we go through as a channel, it really has been incredible, right? So, and that probably leads me into, another question, right? As you mentioned, we're obviously evolving and changing, and copy and print and how people work is changing. You mentioned that about remote work before the actual interview, right? That more people are working remotely. We've got a completely dynamic and changing environment, right? So, for office equipment dealers, they learn pretty hard that when there's lockdowns or shutdowns or supply chain shortages or whatever, that people are printing less, right? And that's the reality that we have in the marketplace, right? So why do you think that dealers and providers have to start evolving, as you talked about Konica Minolta evolving? Why do dealers have to start looking at that as well for growth?
So, I mean, I think the writing was on the wall long before we got hit with kind of our current situation and the pandemic. However, I say this a lot, rumors of our demise are just that, right? I think
Yeah.
there's still a heck of a lot of product being sold and a lot of pages being printed. But, 3 and 4 years ago, we started to see quite a bit of the industry analysts looking and saying, you know what, print is declining, right? Depending on who you listen to, 3%, 4%, 5% a year decline. You start to add that up and it's pretty significant. I also say that when the pandemic hit, we got kind of pushed forward about 4 years. With people going home, right? The hybrid environment, which by the way is here to stay. It's not quite the 4-day work week we talked about a moment ago, but it's a hybrid work style. And I think, there's some real challenges to that work style. And you've heard people like Elon Musk say, back to work. But the reality is, if you want to attract good, strong talent these days, you've got to allow for some type of flexible schedules that then leads to lower print in the office. And that's it. I mean, it's that simple. The good news is there are places where print is growing. We could talk about that.
Yes.
There are places where even a hybrid model leads to new solutions, right? Security solutions. How do you protect the assets of your company when you've got people, remoting in from, as I like to say, a campground in Maine, which is what I've done on and off over the last couple of years. So, so how do you protect that? And I think the dealer that can answer those questions for their customers will find new revenue streams. So, why do they have to? Print is changing. It doesn't mean that, if you're in a market and you have 100% market share, you're going to feel that. Odds are you're not. So you can always do competitive knockouts and things like that. But the reality is, I think dealers have an opportunity to be more important to their customers. And by being more important, you become less, you can't really separate the two. So being able to provide them with other solutions that support this new work style, I think is huge. So do they have to do that? Of course not. Should they consider it? I think so. I think there's a real opportunity, and they must be thinking that way because I have a lot more conversations with dealers about solutions and things like production where we are seeing pages increase. So I think dealers are thinking about this a lot, which is, it's hard. It's hard to think about what the future looks like while you're trying to run the ship. But, these are really good conversations to have. And I love having them, frankly.
Yeah. And I agree with what you say is they don't have to, but I would say certainly they still have to, kind of revisit their business model. For those that are looking to diversify and grow, what is Konica Minolta doing right now to help providers do more than print? What are you doing today?
Well, we've been talking about this for a while. Obviously, this is not new information. And I think our whole way we approach the dealers is always talking about right? So here's our current lineup of office products and here's what we're doing. But have you considered solutions, workflow solutions? Are you looking at how to do security? Are you maybe even interested, if you're doing cybersecurity, are you interested in doing physical security?
Yeah.
So I would say just the whole way we, I hate to use the term sell. I like to see us as more than salespeople, hopefully that we're business managers, right? We're approaching our dealers from a business standpoint. And so we are having those kind of conversations. And then behind those conversations is all kinds of programs, learning and development, marketing, brand, all the pieces that hopefully if a dealer says, yeah, I'm in, I really would like to pursue production, for example. We have about 40% of our dealers today do some kind of production. Either
Wow.
they started in schools, right? So they're selling some mono production to a school system, or they're getting into some really specialized. We have some dealers that are selling incredibly specialized products into unique spaces, whether that's an industrial print, packaging, label, or even the embellishment world has really just kind of exploded in the last 12 months. So, it's all about from my team, they have to really understand their dealer, where they're at on their journey, and what they need from us. And so that could be training, it could be tools, to help demo equipment. We do a lot of remote demo out of our CEC, which is right over there. Yeah, it's funny. I just looked out there and there's a bunch of cars. So that means we're doing some demos. So, what can we bring to that dealer to help them decide which direction to go in? It's understanding their business, it's understanding their market, current customer base. It's a lot easier to sell something to an existing customer and go find a new one. We all know that. So, we just kind of have a bag of tricks basically that we say, okay, so you're looking at physical security. Let's talk about what your customer base looks like. Let's talk about what that solution might be. Do you have an installing company you would use? What about wiring and cabling? So all of those are questions the team is really adept at and really good at saying, tell me which way you want to go, and I will bring the tools to you to do so. And then the most recent kind of effect we brought was Revved Up, which was our program we launched at our dealer meeting back in April. And really that's about helping you with the investment. All of these things, and maybe we were naive way back when we started this, but all of these kinds of changes, even if you're going after your existing customer base, it requires investment, whether you're training your people or changing compensation or hiring specialists or bringing in demo equipment. Dealers have to invest. So if I can help them offset some of that investment, get to break even faster, get to a higher ROI, then that's a good thing. And we have to be thinking that way. We have to think like a business person when we approach these dealers, not just say, hey, you should sell my security stuff. Yeah, that doesn't really help anybody. But saying, hey, I know you're looking at this, maybe Schoolgate Guardian, which is a really cool product. Let's get you a demo unit. Let's train your people. We can wrap some marketing attached to it and help you go after that space. So it's different, and I like it. I think it's a lot more fun, frankly, too.
Yeah, I love that. And all of those things that you just, talked about were not specific to a copier or a multifunction device, right? This is really focusing on their business and helping them, like you said. I think it's incredible to invest not just dollars, but also those skill sets to be able to help them to do that, right?
Yes,
To become
absolutely.
stickier with those customers, which is really neat to see. What kind of things do you see in the future? Maybe it's not even specifically Konica Minolta, but what does work look like in the in the coming years?
Yeah, I think the work from anywhere concept is going to get even broader. We sort of, when we say hybrid, we say, okay, someone's going to be either in an office like I am today or working from a home like you are today. But I think that whole dynamic is going to expand. People are going to want to be able to work from anywhere at any time and have that be seamless. That doesn't mean, by the way, that you're not going to want to print, but it means that when you're printing and accessing corporate assets, what's the security piece on that? And I would say today, if I had to rate it from 1 to 5, I think most companies' hybrid security is like a 3, which means that there's vulnerability there. So I believe what you're going to see is companies demanding their providers give them a 5, and that it be a 5 anywhere, whether someone is accessing from an airport terminal, a mountaintop, an ocean liner, wherever they are, they have to be able to provide that level of security. I think that's going to be absolute base level requirement going forward, because I think there's just been too many incursions. People have had their businesses suffer.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be allowable anymore. And I think you're going to see companies put a lot of pressure on providers to back up their security. And that's going to be very interesting to watch, especially smaller companies deal with that.
Yeah, I work with a dealer, Jeff Bendix over at Bendix Imaging, and he many years ago kind of moved into the security space long before it was fashionable, to diversify, right? And so he's pretty established in the security space now. And one of the things that he said is that, I asked him for one piece of advice, and he said, you have to eat your own dog food. So, for them as a security provider, it's very important that all of the defensible security tactics and tools and strategies that they talk about with their customers, that they're doing that in-house. Right. And I really thought that was amazing, because as he said, if they get into my system, that means they get into all my customer systems, right? Because you're a provider of that service. But the other, part that he said was that once you get good at it, then that risk reduction, raising your customers to a 5, gets easier and easier and easier as you continue to move through it, right? So yeah, I love that. Everybody should be trying to get that
Yeah,
top mark because it matters so
right.
much, right?
And I think the big change is, it was really easy to do when everybody was in a brick and mortar
Right.
building, in the same building, and you could create firewalls. Honestly, I mean, I think we are just going to be working everywhere at any time. That's the other big piece, right? And so being able to perfect that security and frankly, that access, is going to be really critical. So I think that's one big area I see change. I think the other one is around how to reach customers. So the dealers' customers are looking for innovative ways to reach their customers. And it's the same kind of thing, right? Eating your own dog food. So I think real understanding, and we've had some conversations about this. I think it's become a pretty hot topic. It's something we've started talking about recently, which is you have to not think so much about how am I going to sell this product, but you have to think about how is my customer base going to want to buy this product. And that's going to be tricky for us, I think, for a lot of reasons. I just said this actually recently in an interview, that we can't ignore the fact that there still has to be a person at the other end, right?
Yes.
Especially for
Yes.
the products we all sell. You can't just toss this out there and say to the customer, you'll figure it out. You'll know how to attach that finisher and that stapler, right? So the reality is there still needs to be that local connection. And I believe very strongly that that connection is really one of the unique things about our business. But that customer is going to want to do a whole lot of work and a whole lot of investigation before they talk to anybody. And that's the part that I think we all have to figure out. And I say we all, meaning the manufacturing space, the dealer space, all of the pieces that surround us, right? All the solutions. We need to be able to say, how do we make sure that that customer can get what they need from us? Because they're going to want a lot. This whole industry was built on knocking on doors back in the day. And then it went to, okay, you couldn't knock on doors anymore, but you could pick up the phone. And now they're saying, the best thing you can do is create an environment that captures that potential customer searching and asking and looking and downloading, and then make yourself immediately available anytime, day or night, for that customer to ask you a question. If you do that, you got them. The fact that you have them at go gives you just a huge leg up in the ability to then become that trusted provider to them. They want to see you as a trusted consultant, a question and answer person, not as someone saying, hey, here's your new price, right? So that's going to be tricky for a lot of us. First of all, are we staffed for it? Have we got the right people? Does our website do this? Are we able to capture when somebody pokes in and says, hey, I'm just here to look, don't actually talk to me. So we have to make sure that we're doing things right now to prepare for that, because it's happening in little pieces. But boy, oh boy, I think there's going to come a time when most salespeople are going to find those doors solidly shut, either figuratively or literally, and are going to have to find other ways to capture customers' attention frankly, with knowledge, right? So sharing knowledge that maybe before we didn't always share, and consulting and being that, sort of softer, but very, very knowledgeable space for a customer to come.
I love
Very
that.
cool.
For me, even as a consumer, I can only think of myself when I'm in that purchasing phase for anything complicated. That's what I'm looking for, is expertise
Yeah.
when I'm ready to get close to that. So that's
Well,
great.
it's absolutely true. And again, I think also it's that the ability to do a lot without being bothered,
Right.
it's like I don't know about you, but when I shop online, I will let you know when I'm interested in having a conversation. It's not going to be for a while. I'm going to do a lot of work before I get there. But when I do, again, that same idea, I need you to be ready. I just recently purchased, sort of funny story, a Starlink. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. I've become like their biggest salesperson at this point. I don't know. I mean, not like Elon Musk needs any more money, but the reality is it's a great product. So,
Wow.
but very funny. I mean, I poked around, I did a lot of research and did a lot of, Googling and going into different websites. And it was probably like a Saturday morning when I finally said, I think this is the way I'm going to go. And I pulled up a chat and there was somebody there. And guess what? I bought it. I used it. It's been, it's phenomenal. So that's the buying. And I'm not even considered, I'm certainly not a millennial, but I've just adapted that way, as I'm sure you have. And now it's but there's a whole generation of people, my kids won't order a pizza if they can't do it online. So I think that's a big, kind of down the road, but it's a down the road and we're coming on it fast. It's happening faster. As I said earlier, I think the pandemic and the supply chain crisis kind of pushed us forward 4 years, and those that can kind of catch up or are already there are going to win the day.
And listen, we're kind of in respect for your time, we're at that part in the interview, and I always ask, I call it the impossible question, but if you had one piece of advice for providers or dealers that are looking to grow into this kind of new landscape that we've been talking about, what would that be?
Okay, so you don't know me well enough to know that I never have just one piece. I always I wish I could say, I'm sure my kids would say the same thing, like, can't you just tell us one thing? I think here's my feeling. And I've really come to admire this industry in a way, and I've been in technology for years and years, but only here for about 10 years. But I am amazed at the level of connection between the dealers and even the dealers and the manufacturers. To me, that one piece of advice is find the people you admire in this business that are doing things you want to do and talk to them, because they probably have the best piece of advice. I think, trying to isolate and do it yourself is a recipe for, first of all, very, very long hours, lots of frustrations, making mistakes that have already been made. So, that's why I love these dealer groups that they have. I love groups like yours. I think the more we can, without crossing any Department of Justice lines, the more we can work together to find solutions and share best practices and say, hey, by the way, don't do it this way because I did it that way and it was a disaster. To me, that is the best piece of advice, is find somebody to give you that best piece of advice. They are, especially people that are doing the same thing you're doing, they're the best possible people. I mean, I love to sit down with dealers and talk through scenarios and look for ways to work together, but I'm not a dealer. I don't know necessarily. I've tried to learn as much as I can, but I don't know every day what that's like to wake up and say, okay, I got to worry about lease rates today. So find those people that you really admire. And I know, just because I know a lot of those people, they are absolutely willing to share. They are willing to share. And that is, boy, that's just immeasurable, that level of information. You can't beat it.
What a great piece of advice. It's actually one that I give to my children as well, like saying that, as you move forward in the world, that circle that you build around you is going to be one of the most important, things you can have.
So true.
Make sure they're smart.
That's right. Look for the smart kids. They always say, look for the helpers, and those are good too, but look for the smart helpers. Look for the people that, and also look for the people that were early adopters and then had to retrench and redo because they've made some of those mistakes already, and you can avoid them. They'll be happy to share them. They really will.
Wonderful. Well, Laura, I cannot thank you enough for doing the interview today, and hope that you have a wonderful short week. I know it's going to be a busy one.
Yes. Action-packed, 5 into 4. Easy. Yep. Well, you too.
Yes. Thank you very much. And hey, listen, for all of our viewers and all of our listeners out there, for TigerTube and for Tigerpaw Radio, thank you for joining in. And remember, until next time, keep learning.